I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. We will begin this evening with our invocation. Commissioner Lawson, you are recognized. Please proceed when you are ready.
Best for us as an individual. Be with our first responders as they work to protect our citizens, and please be with our men and women serving in our military. Keep them safe, bring them home soon. We ask this all in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte?
Here.
Commissioner Withington? Here. Commissioner Lawson? Here. Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson? Here. Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you. That brings us to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion? Commissioner Johnson?
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion's been made for the approval of this evening's agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
That brings us to public comments. Is there any member of the public who would care to address the commission? Seeing none. That brings us to ceremonial matters. We have one item on the agenda. Director, if you could introduce that, please.
2026-126 is an honorary resolution recognizing Terry Shardik Yeoman on her retirement from the Clay County Election Board, and this is brought to us by Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you. Commissioner Lawson, you are recognized. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yes.
There you are.
Thank you, sir. You know, this is probably one of the more enjoyable things that we do. We're so blessed, and I say this all the time, and I sincerely mean it. We have the best staff, and everybody is just focused on taking care of the citizens. Wonderful people. They dedicate their time and their life to this county, and sometimes that's a hard thing to do. So tonight we're in particular honoring a lovely lady, and she has given so much to this county. And earlier this evening, we went over to her party that she had. The way everybody that came in hugged her, you knew it was genuine love. All of the staff that surrounded her all had so many wonderful things to say about her. The interaction was so genuine and so good. So we hate to lose somebody like that, but then on the other hand, she can go home, enjoy herself, and never have to set her alarm in the morning again. So tonight, we're doing an honorary resolution. Whereas the Clay County Commission wishes to recognize and honor the dedicated public service and professional accomplishments of Terry Craddock Ullman upon her retirement from the Clay County Election Board. And whereas Terry began her distinguished career as a court reporter, serving for 10 years in Kansas City and Jefferson City, where she contributed to important governmental proceedings, including work with the Public Service Commission, depositions at the state penitentiary, hearings at the Missouri Capitol, and traveled throughout the state supporting the Missouri Tax Commission. And whereas Terry faithfully served the citizens of Clay County as a Republican deputy clerk for the Clay County Election Board for 10 years, 7 months, and 14 days, beginning on September the 16th of 2025, and whereas during her tenure, Terry made meaningful contributions across multiple departments, including logistics, poll worker coordination, and voter registration, ensuring the integrity and the efficiency of the election process. And whereas Terry is widely known and deeply appreciated for her professionalism, dedication to outstanding constituent service, and her warm and welcoming demeanor, consistently greeting voters and co-workers with a sincere and genuine smile. And whereas Terry's lifelong dedication to public service and community involvement reflects the highest standards of integrity, professionalism, and civic pride. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clay County Commission hereby expresses its sincere gratitude and appreciation to Terry Craddock Allman for her years of dedicated service and extends its best wishes for a fulfilling and well-deserved retirement. So God bless you, Terry, and if you'd like to, would you like to say something?
I will, yeah, I'd mention that. And before you do, are there any other commissioners who would like to speak? Commissioner, and then after commissioners, we'll go ahead and bring you up. That's generally the order we follow. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, I was going to say something, and then I saw you with the sash and tiara and thought I really shouldn't say anything. Apparently, that's some weird election board hazing that I wasn't unaware of. But that's your thing. Anyway, I wanted to say, first of all, congratulations, Terry, and good luck to you. But I felt compelled to speak because you proved once again, all of you, earlier this month, how democracy works in this country. And we sometimes, many times, overlook how the work that you do makes this country go. And I won't delve into the various complaints about elections that have occurred over the years, because that's not my place. But I do know this, that for this country to continue and for it to work, it works because of you and the work that you've done over the last 10 years with the election board and with everyone else that is here to celebrate you and dress you up today. So I just want to recognize that, because your retirement is a great occasion, it is important, but the work that brought you to the retirement is the thing that is most important to me. And so I thank you for that, and I wish you well in your retirement, and I hope you have the opportunity to get back to all these other people that dressed you up this way at some point in the future. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other commissioners seeking recognition. So please come on up. As you're coming up, two things. One is make sure the green light is on the microphone, state your name, and then make your remarks. And the other is I had the pleasure of escorting you into the building, and I certainly relish the honor. With that, please proceed.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's an honor to be here this evening. I appreciate everything that Clay County does for its constituents, including the election board. We have an awesome, dedicated staff at the election board. They are impeccable workers, hard workers, and take running a fair and assured election so everyone gets their vote counted, make sure that the voters' rights are protected in all realms of our jobs that we do there every day, that I used to do there every day, I should say.
Well, thank you.
I will miss everyone immensely, but yes, you're right. I'll be back from time to time to do something to haze them a little bit, maybe. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. If there are no other comments to be made, we will take a short break, come down, and you will be presented with the resolution. We'll have a few pictures. And then obviously after that, that will conclude that part of it, and you are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. And obviously, like everyone else, you are welcome to any future meetings. So we hope to continue seeing you here. With that, let's go ahead and get our pictures. All right, very good. Thank you again. That concludes our ceremonial matters. This brings us to our consent agenda. Director, if you could go with that, please.
Yes, the first item on the consent agenda is 2026-118. It is approval of the invoice payments for the period of April 18th, 2026 to April 24th, 2026. We have 357 invoices totaling in the amount of $720,016.51. 2026-120 is the request to send a letter to the Missouri Department of Transportation for their review and approval of the taxiway asphalt bids. 2026-122 is approve a purchase of a 2026 Ford Maverick from Gary Crosley Ford for our Planning and Zoning Department. 2026-121 is approval of IFB 4326 to the Brown Piercy Cattle Company for the Ferris Farm agricultural lease. That's through Parks. 2026-123 is approval for the rental contract for 5 large inflatable carnival games to be used at the 250th anniversary and July 4th celebration to fund services for Parks. And 2026-124 is an approval of a marketing matching grant application for the year 2027 through the Missouri Division of Tourism through our Tourism Department, and the match of no more than $90,000.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion has been made for the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Are there any discussions? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That brings us to our regular agenda. There are 2 items on this evening's regular agenda. The first one being 2026-119. Director?
2026-119 is approval of invoice payments for our Clay County Prosecutor's Office for the period of April 18th to April 24th, 2026. There's a total of 6 invoices for $4,648.93.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve 2026-119.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2026-119. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
I recuse myself.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Motion passes 5 in favor, 1 recusal.
The second and final issue on tonight's regular agenda is 2026-125. Director?
2026-125 was a discussion item last week being brought forward this week for approval of a resolution to establish a Clay County Justice Center Planning Committee, and this was brought to us by Commissioner Withington.
Very good. Yeah, I saw that his name was not on there, but I was aware, of course, that he had brought this discussion item up last time. So Commissioner Withington, you are recognized.
I make the motion to approve 2026-125 with 3 commissioner names, Commissioner Johnson, Lawson, and Withington.
Motion has been made to approve 2026-125. Do you have any other comments to make beyond that, Commissioner?
Nope, just that it includes the 3 names, Lawson, Johnson, and Withington.
Okay. And those were on the, those blanks were there, I take it? I'm asking about how the resolution.
Yeah, so what we'll do, if passed, we'll amend this to include the names.
Okay, that was where I was going with that, was that is an amendment that was not on the resolution as written. Very good. Discussion. Seeing none, you're recognized to close, Commissioner.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Withington? Yes. Commissioner Lawson? Yes. Commissioner Wagner? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson? Yes. Commissioner Carpenter? Yes. Motion passes 6-0.
I might add also, although I don't vote, I am also very much in agreement with the commission on this issue, so I'm very happy to see it's a unanimous decision. So thank you. That it concludes our regular agenda. That brings us to discussion items. Director?
Tonight's discussion item is TCA 11, and we have an update from our auditor, Victor Hurlbert.
Mr. Auditor, if you would go right ahead when you're ready.
All right, good evening. Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor.
Tonight's discussion item is the tax code area, or TCA 11, update for the Senate Bill 190, or Senior Tax Credit Program. So just kind of define those acronyms there before you and for the presentation. So the reason for this update, you had a memo, I'll say about a month and a half ago, mid-March, that was sent out. It is posted online as well on the county auditor's website. It involves essentially an error that my office is essentially able to uncover for the Senior Tax Credit Program. It came to us honestly from a taxpayer tip in early March. Came by to my office seeking some answers, essentially noticing that some tax bills in a neighborhood that wasn't their own had been much lower than the previous year. And the whole point of the Senior Tax Credit Program was essentially to keep your property taxes about the same for seniors who are enrolled in a program. And so they thought something was wrong, came to my office. After that meeting, we were able to get our hands on the actual bills themselves for that area of concern. And what we were able to discover is that right away we could see that an error had been made in the base levy rates, the calculation that was used to calculate the credit. So essentially 2024 was the base tax year, and then 2025 was the new tax year. The difference would be the credit. And because there's an error in the 2024 tax levy rates in this particular area, it created a larger credit than there was supposed to be. The issue might have been identified at the time that these senior tax credit monies were to be distributed. So part of the role of my office as well is to audit distributions before they happen. That had not occurred at this point yet because we had a number of issues with the Senior Tax Credit Program. Bills had gone out late, payments were made by check, and some of those payments had not been really timely cash and ready to be sent out. And in fact, we had just got that out on April 15th of this year. But that aside, essentially it was identified, and so I'm required to bring that issue immediately to your attention, and so that is what I did. The issue that occurred, so in a standard audit finding under auditing standards, you're going to have essentially what is the issue or the problem, the condition, and then the criteria, why is it a problem. And so what this chart outlines, and it's in the memo as well, is that you can see, just like I described, there was a input error in the highlighted red cells for the 2024 tax levy rates only for one taxing jurisdiction, the Smithville School District in TCA 11, which, as a point of reference, is in unincorporated areas of the Smithville region. So it's actually not in the city of Smithville. It's in Clay County unincorporated areas, but within Smithville School District boundaries. And so as you can see, essentially the operating levy rate had been 0.5618, but it was supposed to be $2.8796 per $100 assessed valuation. And then the debt service was much higher than what it was supposed to be. And so those two were different. The reason this was a problem is because the logic for calculating a tax credit works that the base year for the operating amount was to be what is billed. And then the higher amount from the new year in 2025 would be subtracted out for the credit. Whereas in the debt, the original interpretation for the Senior Tax Credit Program was that whatever the 25 debt levy rate was to be what was billed. And so as a result, because the operating levy was 0.56, a little over 50 cents per $100 assessed valuation, you had a much larger credit than it was supposed to be because the correct 24 base rate was $2.8796. And so that's essentially what happened. The temp levy was correct, and so that's essentially what we identified. What was the cause of this? That's another element of a finding that I'll mention in this because I think that's a question on everyone's mind. I would attribute that the cause of this was because tax bills were manually created. The software provider, as we know, was simply unable to do this despite assuring us that they would be able to do so. over a long period of time. And so there was some uncertainty as to how the bills were going to be produced. And then in a rush, with pressure to get those bills out on time, they were manually produced via Excel spreadsheet. And we had simply a typographical input error. I'll also note when I looked at sort of some of the master file in that, a lot of the 25 levy rates, so I brought this up to staff and management as well, pointed to one tab, so there was a formula that they all drove back to. So that means you would check it essentially once. Whereas I noticed that the 24 rates had been manually inputted on every single parcel. So there were over 17,114 parcels, all the 2024 rates manually entered, and there are, a handful, a dozen political subdivisions on every tax bill. So I think that gave a lot of risk for this to occur, and I assess that was the cause of the issue. So what? What is the effect? Okay, there was an error in the bill affecting these households. What does that mean? So in TCA 11, only 271 parcels. That's what you see in the column second to the right there. 271 parcels. That is only 1.6% of total parcels, 17,114. So I guess I just want to pause right there and kind of let that sink in. Out of 17,114 parcels, we identified an error rate of 1.6%. So that's pretty astonishing in my opinion, and kind of brought questions to me initially. Could there be more? And I'll get to that. But I'll just say that would almost be an expected human error rate. And so it's honestly not all that surprising considering there was no systematic automated system for these tax bills. What this chart shows you though is that essentially we only billed about 65% of what should have been billed in TCA 11. We should have billed the correct amount on that column of $1,283,768.78. We only billed $840,064.62. Meaning that what was outstanding, what was owed specifically to the Smithville School District was $443,704.16. The Collectors Department did give us some information as well that 75% of these households, the 271 parcels or 202, pay out of pocket, whereas only 69 are in a mortgage escrow situation. So that is essentially the effect, the consequence of what we found. But it begs the question, were there more problems, right? So that was one TCA, there were over 100 TCAs involved, and 271 parcels, but there are 17,114 parcels. So we went to work, we got a hold of the master file for all of the senior tax credit bills. And in looking at that and applying some audit techniques, we were able to identify that there were some other errors. And I'll walk through those and explain. So in two TCAs, 12 and 208, a small amount of parcels, 30 total between them. We had a discrepancy with the Mid-Continent Library. They have something called a TIF opt-out. Legislation was passed 2014 such that if new property taxes are passed after the date of that legislation, I believe was 2014, that amount is actually not TIFed for existing TIFs. It stays with the taxing jurisdiction. And so we have to proportionally calculate that. What happened in both of these TCAs, you can see that they were flip-flopped between the TIFable portion and the non-TIFable portion. One in the year 2020, in the 2024 base, one in the 2025 calculation for TCA 208. The bottom line is those actually don't matter because they're billed as one total levy because they only have one levy rate. So the total amount billed and collected was correct. And also we confirmed with the Collectors Department that there is no residential TIF in these TCAs. So it wouldn't have an effect either. But we did make it known that that was an issue. In TCA 29, this is in the Oakview area. There are 39 parcels that we identified that you had an incorrect operating and debt levy for both years. And it is an immaterial amount. It has not been corrected yet, but it amounts to $141.99 that actually should be refunded in this case, not underbilled, but overbilled. The threshold, I believe, for a refund is $4, so I'd still recommend those corrections be made. And then lastly, you had the Smithville School District matter. So that's what we have found after a rigorous analysis of all the TCAs. Recommendations and response. So my office, in looking at the TCA 11 matter, consulting with council, talking to administration and staff, we propose that this amount has to be billed. It's owed to the school district. We're required by law to bill the difference. So we certainly understand if there's an error on the county's part, which this was the county's error, I would argue as a software program error, that we can waive penalties and interest. In this case, these are taxes. And so a statement was drawn up, discussions were had with the commission to send out to the taxpayers of the amounts owed. And some of those amounts have started to be collected. So what's before you here, the original amount that was supposed to be charged, again, $1.2 million. What we settled recently on April 23rd was not only the base $800,000 and change, but also another $171,539.14, bringing the remaining amount to $272,165.02. That means 21%. So remember, we originally billed 65% and 35% was outstanding. That 35% has come down to 21% because 106 folks of the 271 have paid according to the bill they got. But another 61%, so 39% have paid so far based on the statement we sent out. 61% still owe is the most recent data I have. And that amount totals $272,165.02. I will say, I have not personally in my office received a lot of feedback or concern from taxpayers after the statement went out. I know the commissioners certainly have. I will say that in actuality, when you look at last year's tax bill for TCA 11 compared to this year, even with the amount that's owed, in most cases, it's actually less than last year. Why is that? The reason that happened is that another error that happened was the original interpretation of the senior tax credit program was that voted tax increases were to be billed. So that's since been revised, of course, that the base is the base. But in April of 2025, Smithville School District passed a levy of a 30-cent transfer from its debt levy to its operating levy. And so what that was supposed to do is increase the operating levy and effectively wash out. When you run it through the Hancock Amendment calculation, you do the 30-cent change, but you actually also have the allowable inflation increase. So tax bills actually were supposed to go up slightly across the board, even with the freeze situation. But all I'm trying to communicate is that I would advise the commission, if you have these concerns from these taxpayers, the reality is their tax bills are actually, even after this charge, lower than what they were last year, in most cases. It can depend on the change in your assessed valuation. If your assessed valuation went down, for example, it's on an individual basis. So that's where we are at today with TCA 11. I'll lastly, and then open up for questions, talk about what's the context. What does this mean in the grand scheme of senior tax credit? And where are we at? And I know there are going to be future presentations, discussions on this. This is a very high-level estimate as far as the amounts charged, but it's something I'm tracking so that I can get a monitor if I see something's awry that I should look further into. But I estimated that we should be billing about $64 million of the base. This is not the credit, all right? The fiscal impact of the credit is not going to be received. It's kept by the taxpayer. but we should have been billing about $64 million of those 17,114 parcels. We had our first settlement of senior tax credit money on tax day, April 15th. It was $56,462,085.73, 15,683 parcels. Unfortunately, there was another issue that collector's office identified in this column called the lockbox distributions. What does that mean? As you know, the lockbox with our bank is a situation that I've been able to tour myself, I was pleased to do, where checks are not processed by county staff. Instead, they are sent to the bank so that they can be imaged, indexed, and sent to us in a file. It's got a good audit trail, audit log, it's a good process. The issue that happened with the senior tax credit program is that checks were supposed to be not sent to the lockbox so they could all be distributed separately in one manner. Some got through, 580 of them did. That amounts to about 3.4% of the total. It's actually a little higher, it's 698. I don't mean to be super complicated, but 118 other lockbox came through TCA 11. So I've included that in TCA 11 there. So really it's more like 4% went through lockbox. That happened because instructions just weren't followed. There wasn't matching the parcel by county staff to the senior tax credit list. And so off they went to the lockbox, to the bank. And those amounts were distributed according to the software program, which another thing I want to put on record is incorrect. This is why we could not do the bills through our tax collection software system, because they were calculating them incorrectly on a proportional basis rather than an actual levy basis. So I also recommend that needs to be fixed. That needs to be compared to how they should be distributed, and an adjustment can be made when there's additional monies to settle. But it is a lower amount of 4% of the senior tax credit program. Then you also had the TCA 11 settlement, another $1 million, 271 parcels. Bottom line, I estimate we still have about 7% or $4.4 million to go of the base. But when you look at the parcel math, it suggests only 3%. And in addition, just before I came up here this evening, we had a residential TIF settlement of senior tax credit money on another 137 parcels, which would bring down that parcel amount even more to about 2.5%. So why is it so? Why the delta? That's the questions I'm asking and monitoring. Things that I could assess to be the reasons for that we'll get answers on are kind of that situation I described, where you can have taxpayers where their assessment did not increase as much as the Hancock Amendment calculation. So therefore, they might actually pay a lower bill, in which case the estimate would be overstated, or if their assessment decreased. So it again depends parcel by parcel. So I think the estimate could be slightly overstated, but not on a material basis. And you have the issues like the collection rate, right? How much was actually collected as well. Usually the collection rate is about 98%. Other remaining parcels, why haven't they all been settled yet? There are a lot of complex matters at hand. You have parcels that include agricultural, commercial property in the parcels, or split. You have cities or districts that do special assessments on the tax bill, so those have to be handled. There are questions about who's paid. Some people just haven't paid, as I mentioned, the collection rate. So those are some of the other things we are working through. But I will say on the broad level, something I've done is tracked the estimated amount charged by political subdivision. Okay, and we've communicated with some of the political subdivisions, not all of them, but I've had communications with North Kansas City School District, Liberty School District. Those political subdivisions are actually close to 5% left of what I was expecting. And so they're fully informed on that. But it does vary widely. There are smaller political subdivisions where that amount is much higher, right? It's not near 5%. There are some that are zero. There are some that haven't been distributed at all, a couple very small political subdivisions. So these are things that I'm monitoring, and I'm going to keep monitoring until we have complete assurance that we've done everything we can. But I wanted to put the TCA 11 issue in broader context. But I am happy at this point to answer any questions about TCA 11 or SB 190. I know collectors, staff, officer here as well to answer any questions. And
Thank you very much. As usual, a very thorough, and you've brought information to us that, while can be rather difficult to understand, you've presented it in a way that I think is certainly user-friendly. Commissioner Lawson.
You know, you're brilliant. I'm not. And it does make it extremely difficult when you go through all of this. To you, it makes perfect sense. To me, I'm going, what the hell is he talking about? So, a couple of questions that I have. Right now, today, on the people that are in the Smithville area that were incorrectly billed, you know, like $2,000 under whatever it might be. Today, what amount up there are we short right now on them? Money.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say $272,165.02.
Okay, and some people have paid.
Some people have paid. So 100 and let me get there for sure. 106 have paid in full, and they've paid. And I should have put this on the chart, but 107. They have paid $171,539.14.
Okay.
And Commissioner, I'll say I need to be communicating clearly. So I mean that's on me if I,
Well, no,
yeah.
I mean, like I say, that, you know, maybe to Jay Johnson or somebody else, or Scott, Mr. Wonderful here, he may understand that 100% perfectly. But, you know, to me and to Joe Blow out on the street, it's just overwhelming. I can tell you that. I don't mind admitting it. But you mentioned in your conversations that, you know, there was this shortfall. I guess my thought was, and you said, you know, there were errors, that were the errors on the part of the county, or were some of that on the back of our software company that it came out billed incorrectly?
So I would say county's error, but I would say the only reason county made the error is because software provider did not live up to their contract.
Okay, so having said that, one of the things, just bottom line, which I'm a bottom line girl, on the bottom line, we've got a bunch of people out there who were horribly billed incorrectly. And some of those people came in, and they came up to the desk and they said, I want to pay my taxes, but something can't be right because it's $2,000 less than it was last year. And somebody, like one gentleman said, the guy went back, came back up and said, nope, that's the right amount. That's what you need to pay. After that happened a couple of times, it seems to me that all kinds of red lights should have gone off. And the thing that just sticks in my throat, and is going to continue to do so, is the fact that when we have people coming in here and they are saying to us, hey, I thought that I mailed this, and, you know, no matter how poverty-stricken these people are, if it isn't our fault, tough stuff, you have to pay. In this instance, it is our fault. To me, none of those people this time should have had to pay that. And part of that should have been picked up by the county. Part of it should have been picked up by the software company. For us, this whole thing, this whole, when I think how hard we all fought to get 190 in and get it done quickly like we wanted to benefit our citizens, and then for it to turn into the mess it turned into, I just don't see, I know that monkey is on our back as far as I'm concerned. If we have to cough up the bucks to take care of it, we ought to be making our software company pick up at least half of it. We throw money, good after bad, on studies for every damn thing we can come up with. And if we can afford to do that, then by gosh, I think we should be able to pick this up, and people should not be penalized in this manner. Now, I know I'm probably way outvoted, but I just, having to speak for these folks, I think this has been disastrous. And once again, I'm going to say, we need to be advised maybe every other week at least. Here's where we are on the new software. Here's how things are progressing. Here's how the billing is going. So when comes September, it's not surprise, and here we are again in the same mess we were last year. We can't go through it again, and the citizens can't go through it again. But I strongly think, and I will continue to feel this way, we have to eat it, because it's our mistake. We'd have to eat it any other time, so as far as I'm concerned, we should be doing that. I get what you're saying. I understand how this all came down. I respect you, greatly for your abilities. But this hasn't been your error. I just think it's a time that we've got to bite the bullet here.
I appreciate that. And if I might make a couple comments to that, just thoughts I had to those remarks. I'll say first, so about the, gain different information from offices, I can understand that. And so the taxpayers I met with expressed the same situation. I think, the assessment's correct. No real question about the assessment. As to why did the tax bill go down, I think, if I could give a reason why I think that explanation was given, I would say it was because of what I mentioned with that initiative that passed in April of 25. So Smithville did pass that 30-cent levy transfer, and I think that caused some confusion to think that that was the issue. And certainly we can appreciate how busy and how much activity occurs. I guess the second thing I'll mention, I think we've said this before, and I certainly, I would not want to be in those, shoes receiving a tax bill from the government for that mistake. I definitely understand that. But we do have to look at what's allowable. So we're required to tax this under state law for school districts in particular. But then also, I would just advise, you have to look at kind of the fairness question for other taxpayers. Because doing that for the county to eat it, so to speak, would it be essentially covering those taxes where no one else receives that benefit. So that's just something to consider. I mean, being the error that it is, which I definitely recognize and appreciate, it's just that not the full amount of the bill was sent out, and then the remainder was sent out. And it was actually less than last year. So I guess those are just my thoughts, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. It's been a while since I played Monopoly, but I recall there was a card that said either a chance or community chest that said, bank makes error in your favor, collect $200. In real life, however, when the bank makes that error, they want their $200 back, as I recall. Your sentiment, Mr. Auditor, that you just made, though, I agree with, because anytime you treat a taxpayer differently than another, that does open you up to great risk and great liability. So, although I understand the sentiment, I tend to agree with you on what you've just outlined. My question is really more for staff, and I guess I may pick up the baton that my colleague just put down as far as the remedy, because at the end of the day, we have what we have. We are having to inconvenience taxpayers to repay what they owe. But I don't know if that is something, Director, that I can ask for staff to talk about as far as kind of where we're at currently with.
Absolutely, they're available for questions.
Then
Collector.
I will make their arrival worth arriving for.
Right.
So if you don't mind, Mr. Auditor, I might just invite that comment as to how we're creating that remedy for this year, and whoever wishes to take that one, I'll leave it to them. If they want to rock, paper, scissors it or arm wrestle for it, I don't care. Oh, Robert drew the short straw, sorry.
Barbara O'Reilly, Collector. We had a conversation yesterday with the taxing service, and they thought they had something they were going to send us yesterday. This morning, they had not sent it. They are still working on it. They found another little error in the calculations that they can't get resolved. They hope to have it first thing tomorrow. Every week we're having meetings, phone meetings, conversations with them, trying to resolve the distribution so we can get this all set aside and re-enter and recalculate with the system, and they're working on it, and we're approving things as they send us, fixes. We recheck them, we put them in a test system, and we check to see if it works or not. If it doesn't, of course, we send it back and say what we found that does not work. They are trying to resolve it, and that's where it's at.
Okay, so remind me, because I may have forgotten a couple of our steps because it's kind of winded through all these ways. The software company that we are using for this next round, it's a different one than what we had last year, or is it the same?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
We've had them for over 20 years.
So I guess I'm gonna channel my colleague just for a moment and just ask why. And I guess my concern is that obviously we had the performance issues last year. Sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it certainly suggests that we are having similar performance issues. So I guess my question ultimately becomes, at what point do we say either they will perform or that we will have to make a change in order to make sure that our next round will be done properly? Or has that even been decided upon yet?
That's been thought about. If we don't have new and correct information to start with, how can we justify doing anything with bad information? If we start out with bad information, we're going to have bad information.
Sure.
And a new company or a new system is not going to be able to reconcile, balance, prove back.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
our issue. We have to have good information proving that things do balance back before we can start a new
Sure.
system.
Well, and it strikes me, and maybe Dieta will speak to this, but it strikes me that if you wait too long, then bringing someone else new into a system, you're going to have exactly that issue. So if you don't make a change, you've got to trust that down the line the current provider is going to figure it all out. If you wanted to go away from that, then you have to make that determination fairly early, I would think, to provide the time that a new provider would be able to come up to speed, have good information, and provide good billing. But now you've reached the end of my expertise in the matter, so I don't know if either you or Dieta had an initial comment to that.
Dieta Jacobs, Administrative Services Director. Commissioner, we did put out an RFP for new collector software. We had 5 responses, and it is currently slated for a technology committee review on the 6th of May.
Okay.
So we'll be going through the responses to that RFP, and we are in the process of evaluating how we're going to not allow this to happen in the future. At the same time, we can't jump into a software and just put it in place and hope that it works.
Right.
We have to be very methodical about how that works. We've had conversation with both the current software company and the auditor and discussions with our bank in various ways on how to not repeat this in the future, even if we have to establish a rudimentary system only for SB 190 to work in parallel to our non-SB 190 tax collection.
Sure. Okay. Well, I appreciate that comment and appreciate that information. There's an old adage that it reminds me of from Barbara's comments of garbage in, garbage out. So
True story.
you've got to make sure that what you get, you can rely on. So I appreciate those comments and thank you very much.
Thank you. First, a couple questions for the auditor and then maybe for some other folks too. You mentioned an ongoing existing delta of some kind in which you're monitoring, getting the numbers to sync up correctly. Can you just give a little more detail on what you're talking about there, above and beyond this Smithville issue? Because it seems like it's more than just those.
Sure. So the method on the estimated charge, I don't think I discussed that. It's pretty rough, right? Because, before tax bills are produced, we essentially took aggregate assessed valuations by political subdivision. And the method was to take the 2024 operating levy revenues and add that to 2025 debt revenues. So take the levy rate times the 25 assessed valuation for debt, the 24 levy rates times the 24 assessed valuation, add them together, and that's the number you get. So it's a rough estimate for that reason, because as I say, you're going to have exceptions to that general rule, but that is the aggregate amount. So again, just looking at the figures there, I think I'm overstated, but I want to work more with the collector to understand what was the total of the bills for all the parcels, and then we'll get right there. But in the audit techniques we performed and looking at the master file, looking at all the rates, that's what we were able to identify was TCA 11 and those others that I mentioned. So the delta here, on a dollar amount, we assess we're 7% short in aggregate after everything that's been settled. Again, as I mentioned, estimated charge could be slightly overstated. Lockbox distributions need to be corrected. And so those are 2 factors affecting that number. But then on the parcels, we know the parcels for sure, and that's only 3% to go. So that's quite a bit different, because it would suggest that those are pretty high property taxes for what's remaining. So that gives me some questions if it's where we're at. So when we get to the point that we think we're all done, that's what I'm going to expect, that I've said all along this process. So I want to see what's the reconciliation of the amounts charged and what's distributed, who didn't pay, who's delinquent, and then I think we'll have this buttoned up.
So first of all, thank you for doing that, and for the obviously this is a whole complicated thing that you've had to master here. So thank you for explaining it to us. But in terms of that process going forward, I mean, is this above and beyond what you've seen in the past? How long are we talking in terms of trying to get it all rectified and have the numbers add up to your satisfaction? I mean, are there potential other issues outstanding beyond TCA 11 that are causing this?
Not that I've identified yet. I do think, again, I think the estimate is, likely the reason for why it's overstated. About, have I seen this before? Absolutely not. So I think we've got so many issues this year. I mean, we first brought this up in the collector annual settlement that reported something on the amount of 550 million total distributions, where the amounts charged were about $610 million charged. There's your difference, more or less, give or take. And so, usually we're at a closer 98% collection rate on an annual tax season. And so it is very different, and the fact that everything is being done manually. So this information has to get into those software system reports, and so it's causing kind of down the stream issues for my office to be able to reconcile those matters as well. But I think, you know, we're working towards this process of, you know, adding it as we go, and then I think we're on the right track.
And do you think we're definitely, though, going to be able to figure it out and get to a place where we understand the numbers from all the different angles? Obviously, we have just a complicated web here. And if so, do you have like a time frame in mind? Just because, I mean, that just feels, you're saying you haven't seen this before, and those feels like big enough numbers, you know, to your point of anything over $4 has to be refunded kind of thing. Well, we're obviously well over $4 here with these numbers. So
Yep.
just trying to get a better understanding of how severe of a problem it may or may not be.
I think we should have this done. My recommendation, a lot of the school districts anyway, which again have received close to 95%, but their fiscal years end on June 30th. So I think that seems like again, in a normal year, most of this money is distributed by January 15th. So, you know, we're 3 months late from the get-go, and that's caused a lot of issues as well. So I think June 30th would be something we should all strive for. Can we solve it? Absolutely. We know how much is in the bank account. Okay, so it needs to be reconciled for amounts remaining and then tied to those parcels, and that's kind of the question I'm going to keep asking.
Okay. You mentioned, you know, that January 15th date, did you say? That we normally would have these monies remitted to the taxing jurisdictions. Have there been requests for any kind of interest or anything like that for late receipt?
We did have one school district, I guess it's public information, so that's fine. Liberty School District inquired about interest for the lag in time. We did try to, in that April 15th settlement, try to proportion that out by political subdivision, because there was interest earned by the county for that amount. And the statute, and I'd have to consult with counsel, talks about interest goes to the county general fund. So I don't know if it contemplates anything different. I don't know if it contemplates late distributions, though, because the other problem here is you had untimely depositing of checks. We had 17,114 more or less checks, paper checks, that were not timely deposited. So how can you say that interest was earned by the county when it wasn't even in the bank, right? It was still at the taxpayers. So you have an issue about the timing of the depositing of those checks, right? And so that could be a calculation to come by. The amount I calculated for Liberty was not significant enough that I think it would present a kind of time value money opportunity cost like real issue. But that's the only one I'm aware of that.
Okay, so not an issue with Smithville School District as far as we know?
No. Their request in speaking with superintendent, school board members was they wanted it by the end of May, because there is a DESI report, financial report, that needs to be submitted that affects their funding for the upcoming budget cycle. And so we've accomplished that to an extent. And that's why I say, you know, we need to keep moving. But, you know, the other thing too with the interest question is similar to the TCA 11 issue. If we do it for one, do we have to do it for everyone? You know, we need to think about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, speaking on that issue real quick, so Commissioner Lawson, you know, brought up the idea of, which I think is worth at least considering, you know, not on this 1 year charging the amount above and beyond what they were billed for initially. And this, so I guess, is sort of for you and sort of for county council as well. I guess I'm trying to understand legally, are we precluded from doing that, or are we simply prudently making that choice?
Well, I think the shortest answer I can give is that the statutes require us to properly assess, properly collect all the dollars that we have, and there's no authority to back off that, to collect less than we believe is properly owed. And that's kind of been the overarching approach we've taken is, this is our duty as a county, and there's no statutory authority that says that we can just arbitrarily say, in this one instance, we're just simply not going to collect what we believe to be owed.
Yeah. And just to clarify, even for persons who may have come in with their bill that they knew to be too low and inquired about that and were told, no, in fact, that is the amount you should pay, even after proactively checking, there would be no exception potential there.
Yeah, none that I've identified. Again, we do have some, obviously some flexibility with penalty and interest, and we are being, I think, very considerate on that front, and no intention of collecting until we get to a point where someone just simply refuses completely to pay.
Absolutely.
But that's where we definitely have some flexibility that we're exercising, but not for the underlying principle. Because essentially, we're a conduit. It's not our money, right? It's someone else's money that we collect for them. And so that is what we believe our statutory obligation to be.
Okay, thank you. And so, Mr. Auditor, the average here is over 1,500 per parcel? Is it 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there, 100?
For like a property tax bill?
In terms of what we underbilled these folks on average.
For TCA 11? I think it was, oh, yes, that, so the amount of that 400,000, correct. The amount that we went out with, that was about the average, yes.
So I guess I point out that is a big decrease. So if you got your property tax bill and it was, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 lower than it was in the previous year, you would notice. You would find that quite unexpected, especially given, what's happened with property taxes, right, in recent years. And so I guess I'm wondering, do we have any sense of how many people did call or come in to inquire about the fact that their tax bill was dramatically lower? We just don't know?
I do not know. I've only spoken to two.
Mm-hmm. So that would be a question, I suppose, either for the collector's office or for DHED. Do we have any sense of how many folks may have come in and inquired, or called in, or come in?
I know I spoke to two. I don't know if they're the same two. We didn't keep track of that. I can say that it is definitely, the understanding of staff was that the change in the way that Smithville schools were addressing their debt and their general ad valorem. That's what we contributed that drastic decrease to. Not until we were able to get into the back end to see those calculations. Not all staff members would have access to that. They could just go in and look at what the bill was. And out of, I don't know, how many taxpayers do we have? 148,000? I mean, it's not just the 271 that staff was calculating it, or the 17,114. They were also processing the rest of the real estate taxes and the personal property taxes. So with that volume and with the confusion, they went with what was in the system, and that's how that was continued to be passed along to the citizens, is that they believe that bill to be correct. Fortunately,
when you say they,
auditor,
you're referring to
staff.
Okay, because it seems to me that if somebody came in with a very unusual sort of complaint that their property tax bill was dramatically too low.
Yes.
I assume that doesn't happen too frequently.
Not too often.
I guess I'm wondering, given the size of the numbers, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, why that wouldn't be caught on the spot as a pretty obvious error.
Well, I can explain to you the two that came to speak with me, because I brought them into my office. I had access to the back end, the formulations, and I brought them in. I said, here's your assessed value. I plugged it into this formula, and here's the 2025 assessed value. I plugged it into that formula and showed how it calculated it. I had no reason to believe, because I did not have access to the original levies for 2024. We had a sheet for 2025 because it was broken down. It had the general ad valorem tax and the debt levy. 2024 was not separated. So that's where those were manually entered. We did not have that table, as the auditor pointed out. So that's where that switch of the information occurred. But if you're not the one that deals with those numbers all of the time, I didn't pick it up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay?
So I guess I just want to extend my thanks again to our auditor. One of the requests I would make, first of all, thank you for all the work you've already done on this. Sounds like you've got a lot more work going forward, so thank you in advance for that. One request I'd like to make is just, I know one of the things you do as part of your audits and performance reviews is make recommendations in terms of policies and procedures going forward, in terms of how we may not only avoid having gotten in this pickle, but maybe how we could have in real time addressed or caught the issue. So if you have any ideas in that space as well, I think that would be helpful, because I do think maybe that piece could and should have happened as well, in addition to avoiding the issue to begin with. I think we've all said, Commissioner Lawson, you said it again this evening, regular updates in terms of how things are going. I think that certainly is necessary. I know our county administrator, who's off this week, has made that commitment. So I think we'll all just stay on top of that. I will say our tax code is way too complicated. It was already way too complicated before the SB 190. SB 190 was a way too complicated addition to an already too complicated tax code. There were alternatives that would have been much simpler. I know we've discussed that. We happen to have one of the most complicated overlapping sales tax jurisdictions in this state as well. Probably out of the 50 states, we're probably number 50 in terms of the most complicated, just because we have so many overlapping taxing jurisdictions that collect sales tax. And that looks like it may get more complicated in the future too. So one of the things we should try to keep in mind, I suppose, is what are ways that we can simplify and streamline the tax code and the payment of taxes, because we've made it way too complicated. You said you didn't understand everything. The auditor was saying, I certainly didn't understand everything. He said too, I tracked as much as I could, but it's so complicated that I think it's, unless you spend a lot of time with it, it's almost impossible to comprehend. And I think we owe our residents and our citizens of the county, to the extent that we can have any impact on that, we owe them a tax code that they can understand. And if it's too complicated for us, I assume it is for most of them too. But I appreciate everybody's work on it. We'll stay on top of it and try to do our best going forward. Thanks.
Commissioner Johnson?
So I think one way to fix this property tax complicated issue is to get rid of property tax, and I'll continue to preach that forever. I can't stand property tax. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's an unfair way to tax, but nonetheless, that's another story. I do have some questions for either you or Barbara, I'm not sure who, but it has to do with the software company. Okay. We've been hearing a lot about, putting a lot of blame on the software company for these problems that we've had, and we're still using that same software company. A couple of questions. One, are we still paying money to that software company?
We have not paid them, no. We've withheld payment.
Could you come just a little closer to the mic so that we can?
I apologize.
That's okay.
We withheld payment.
You withheld payment?
Yes.
If you didn't withhold payment, is there a regular payment process, payment plan we're on with them? Are we still paying them?
There's a maintenance fee, yes. And I'd have to defer to Barbara for what that amount is.
You don't know how much it is, roughly?
Barbara O'Reilly Collector. The amount that I'm withholding is almost $298,000.
I heard $298,000?
Yes, that's for the setting up and
$298,000, how often do we pay that?
once a year.
Once a year?
Yeah, that was.
So
the
basically
setting-
$300,000 we're paying a year to this software company?
Pardon?
We're paying almost $300,000 every year to this software company. Where is this company located? Or the representatives that you guys deal with, are they local?
No.
No.
They are in Seattle.
Is there any way to get somebody from that company to come here
They were here. We had two of their representatives here for almost a week, and they worked with the system, trying to figure out what the problems were. They have several programmers that are spread around the country, I think.
Yeah.
They're not local, and they are in other time zones, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, when I meant come here, I might come and stand at that podium where you are and let us talk to them.
I'm sorry, what?
When I meant have them come here, I meant them have them come here and stand at that podium where you are so that we can talk to them. Will they come and talk to us, do you know?
I'm assuming we can try.
Because I would like to talk with them. I would like them to come to one of our meetings and allow us to have a conversation with them. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. And my fear is it's going to happen again. And the old saying, you know, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. There's no way we're going to be able to blame software. I will not allow anybody to blame software this year. When taxes are due this next year and if we have issues, we cannot say it's a software company again. We just can't do that. We can't do that. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's somebody's job if this happens again. This cannot be a software issue anymore. And we have to figure that out. I don't know what that means, but we have to figure that out. We've had plenty of time. We had this conversation a year ago. I'm not saying we. I'm saying I have specifically from this place said we need to get this worked out, have this process smooth and running long before we roll it out. And oh yeah, we'll have it done. We'll have it done. We're blaming the software company that they promised us something and they couldn't deliver. But now we're still using the same software company who's promising something that still has not delivered. So just know, my concern is we don't ever blame the software company again. We either have to find another solution. I don't know what the answer is, but it can't be the same thing. Fool me twice, shame on me. And we can't have that happen again. And I'd love to have them come to this meeting and explain to us what's going on. I want to hear it from them.
And Commissioner, we can definitely request their attendance to speak with you and see if they're willing to do that. And we don't disagree with you. We don't want to be in this situation either. We cannot step away from that software company in the middle of trying to rectify or reconcile this. It's impossible. So we have to continue to utilize them until we can balance and that we can get the money that has already been collected appropriately distributed. So while we are still working with them to do that, we have also had conversations with them about getting on board and getting things ready for 2026. Because the other aspect of this is that we went so far as to exclude the debt levy and the blind pension fund from this program, and then in January we changed that. So we moved this far to do this year's, and now we're going to have to come back and undo quite a bit of that to do next year's. So we've already had those conversations. They do have that information, and they've put our current issues at the forefront. We asked them to prioritize the distribution of the funds so that our taxing jurisdictions get the money that has been paid by the taxpayer. The secondary part of that is to be working on and putting their developers on 2026. The other aspect of that, as I had indicated, we have the RFP and we are reviewing that, and it's going through our process. We started the RFP process in April so that we can evaluate more up-to-date systems that will do this in a more efficient way, more modern way, utilizing better technology that's more flexible, that can adjust to some of these legislative changes. Because I don't know that this is the end of the legislative changes for SB 190. We don't know. So it has to be something that will be able to be adjusted, and we have to account for that as we look at the new software.
And then the next question I have is the software, the $300,000 we're paying, do any of these other taxing entities help us pay for that?
No.
No one does. I mean, most tax collection we do it for the schools, but the schools don't help us pay for that.
We collect for all of the taxing jurisdictions. I believe there are 26 taxing jurisdictions, and there is a percentage that we charge them to do their collection.
And is it a percentage that's enough to cover our expenses for things like this expensive software?
I believe
Do you know? I mean, maybe in the future, we can take a look at that and have, is that fee that we're charging, is that,
The fee is in the statute. I would have to look
That's
to
what
see
I was gonna ask.
if we are
It's by-
charging up to the statutory maximum.
yeah, okay.
I haven't looked at that recently.
I'd be curious to know that as well.
I have had a conversation with collectors across the state. We are not the only ones
Yeah.
that are facing this challenge, and even the ones that say they've got it figured out, they're also having issues with the distribution on the back end. We have other collectors that have a little bit smaller jurisdictions that are utilizing a customized approach. They're not hiring a company, they're having somebody come in. I do know that there are a couple of counties that are changing their software, updating their software. I know Greene County is changing theirs as of May. So there's a lot of change. I can also tell you there were 19 collectors that decided to retire this year because of SB 190. So we are not the only one. Unfortunately, this is where we feel our pain. And we are very transparent. And that's wonderful, but it also hurts.
Yeah.
So.
So the counties that do it right, I'm assuming there are some that have done this right?
It seems so, yes.
Has
Yes.
Platte County?
Platte County has a company called Ulrich. That's two brothers, and they are not taking on new customers. We solicited their bids in 2023, or a demo from them in 2023, and they did not respond to our RFP this year.
Okay. What company are we using now?
We're using Ascend,
Ascend.
and I will tell you, the Platte County collector and her chief deputy collector are retiring this year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
A couple of things I want to mention. One is, I think it's a great idea to have some representative from the software company come before this commission. And I think that is something that we should, as we conclude this discussion, put in our instructions to staff, meaning the administrator. We cannot, by our ordinances and certainly by our Constitution, if I remember correctly, direct anyone but the administrators, so we need to go through the appropriate channels. But I think part of our recommendations coming out of this discussion should be that we have those representatives from that company come before us and explain exactly where we went off the rails. We do spend, as was brought out by Commissioner Johnson, a considerable amount of money, and what it's cost us on this particular occasion has been, I think, a harm to the credibility of the county, and I think that cannot go unaddressed. One of the things that I've heard, I was reading an article today on some of the legislation going through Jefferson City on property taxes, is they compared it to a giant, rather complicated game of Jenga. You try to pull one thing out, and I think that, yes, property taxes are complicated. When you layer those on top of another piece of legislation like 190, it becomes more complicated still. That does not excuse anybody from being able to administer these programs in a way that is basically correct, basically makes the numbers add up the way they should. And finally, Commissioner Lawson brought up the idea of perhaps holding those taxpayers harmless. I must say, I brought that idea up about, well, when this issue first surfaced about Smithville, I ended up with crickets, so I am glad that that idea did not go completely ignored. I do recognize the difficulties outlined by Commissioner Wagner, and I acknowledge those, and I think those are valid concerns, but I think it is a subject worth consideration, notwithstanding monopoly. But I did want to make those couple of points, and at the end of this, I'm going to ask commissioners if they want us to give staff any direction, as I usually do in these discussions. Now, clearly, the director is here in the place of the administrator today, so those recommendations, while given to the director, would certainly be forwarded to the administrator, because that is the proper route to take. We cannot, as I said, give direct instruction to any other staff members without going through him. That's just the chain of command, and that's the way to keep it as clean as possible. But I certainly appreciate the knowledge that you've imparted to us and the situational awareness that you kept being able to bring forward to us. So thank you both for that, because what you gave us was some of the factual information I believe that we need to go forward. Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter, you had some very penetrating questions and very thorough exploration, so certainly appreciate your input. With that, Commissioner Lawson, I believe you were seeking recognition.
Yeah, two quick things. Number one, is there a specific statute that dictates that we cannot give that money back? What were you had referenced that when Commissioner...
Yeah, so there's not a statute that says we can't do it. There's a statute that says we have to collect.
Oh, okay.
So it's operative in that nature, that
Okay.
our duty is to collect.
Okay.
And there's no exclusion to that would allow us to, at our discretion, choose not to.
We can do it when we make a mistake.
Because it's statutorily authorized. That issue or that item is authorized by statute, that we have two statutes that would allow us, when there's a mistake, an error admission, to look at the penalty and interest only.
Okay, I'd just like to see whatever that verbiage is that dictates that. The other thing is, something that scared the hell out of me was that you or Barb maybe said that they were going to the software company was going to try to make a correction, and that they had a call into them, and they were supposed to call us back, and they didn't call us back. And I think that's something that I believe bothers me the most. You know, you guys they're trying to get them to respond, and they're not responding in a timely manner. And when that happens, either you call them back and keep calling them back till they respond, or go to Damon and let him call and say, we need this response. Because we're to April. We are to April. And nothing has been resolved, in essence. And so we're going to hit September again, just like we did last year, and it's all going to fall apart, and we're going to say, oh, well, we'll have to get new software, but it won't be here till blah, blah, blah. So that's my biggest concern, is we've got to hold their little tootsies to the fire and make them respond. And then I'm in a total agreement, however we need to go through Damon or whatever we need to do to make them come to us. It's unfair to Barb and to you to stand here and take all the heat when you don't have all the answers, because it's them. And so I think that they need to be brought forward, and I think it needs to happen sooner rather than later. And then I think we need to really start pushing their buttons to make sure that they respond to you as you want them to respond to you.
Thank you. And if I may, to make some clarification, I think Barbara was referring to, we did receive information on Wednesday, because we have, as a result of a conversation that the county administrator and Barbara and Randy and myself had with the collection company, we were able to establish those weekly meetings, and we did have people from the software company come in and visit here and sit with staff and find out how difficult it was, and the fact that some of the corrections that they were providing just weren't working.
Yeah.
So what she's referring to is, we were told on Wednesday that they thought they had a fix for the distribution, which is the ability to get that money out of our bank account to the taxing jurisdictions in electronic format and not having to do it manually. They had a fix. When they ran it internally, they found a couple of bugs. So they pulled it back, and then they went to send it to us again, and they still couldn't make it work. So that's been pretty much the theme of us trying to work back and forth with that. And to Commissioner Carpenter's point, we had a conversation with the auditor earlier today about doing proactive, I don't think you called it an audit. What did you call it? I'm going to put you on the spot. Because we want to do this right, too.
Yeah, so, well, Vic, yeah, I think I'm on the record, right? We're good, all right. So yeah, to Commissioner Carpenter's point about, recommendations going forward, I think clearly, let's not do manual bills again. Flat, that's the easiest solution, if we have to, if for whatever reason we have to. We've certainly learned a lot of lessons from this go-around. The 2024 pointing to a formula would solve a lot of those issues. And certainly, we need to check all the bills before they're sent out, every single one, right? And there can be a process to do that if we have a systematic process to do it, whereby all the rates are inputted, you're checking it once, right, instead of 17,114 times. But I think we need to do that. So that's what I use as roughly, that's essentially a control, right, a preventative control, an internal control, rather than having to do a post audit. That's always preferred. Yep.
So we are working in conjunction with whoever we can help or think that can help us. And again, we're working with our bank as well. As the auditor indicated, that money sat unable to be deposited because it had to be deposited separately. We had to use a manual format for it. So we're already talking about, if we are in worst case scenario, having a secondary bank account to do just those. So again, as Auditor Hobart indicated, we have learned a lot. And no, I don't want to be here again. I don't want to be in this situation. Our citizens deserve better. And that is what we are striving for, and we're already there. We're not waiting until this gets done to evaluate changes to the software.
Very good. I'd like to start kind of rounding off our discussion a little bit. I would like to start with, and I would like to have other recommendations possible, but I would like to start off with recommending that we instruct the administrator to, at the earliest possible moment, bring representatives from Ascend to this location, if possible. Certainly if we can do it by Zoom, but I'd much rather have them here in person and look at them eyeball to eyeball. But I would, that would be one recommendation I would make. Are there any comments on, or, well, I guess I'd ask you, is that kind of a consensus view that we're coming up with here? Is that, I see head nods pretty much around, so we'll make that one of the recommendations. Do any other commissioners have any other instructions that we might want to communicate to the administrator through the director so that he could then take those actions? Is there anyone else who has a thought on the matter?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that...
Oh, go ahead and get your mic on, please. You're not appearing. Okay, there we are. There you are, you're recognized.
Okay. The only thing I would say, Commissioner, is that I would like us, just if it's even by email or whatever through our administrator, that we get some kind of update on a weekly basis what's happening. But that's it.
Okay, do we want it weekly? I heard somebody say bi-weekly, or to have it, or periodically, whatever. I mean, is there a recommendation from commission on that? Commissioner Withington, you are recognized.
So, remember, I asked Damon for monthly updates, and he's
Okay.
going to start giving us monthly updates
Okay,
next
good
week.
deal.
So, so we'll be getting monthly updates on this.
Commissioner, go ahead, I'll hit your microphone if you want to be heard. Okay. Does Commissioner Withington's observation take care of your thoughts, or do you want to continue with
At
that?
least every other week.
Well, we can ask him next week. He said he's going to give us an update next week, so we can ask him
Oh,
to
good.
do it more often.
Okay.
Very well, then it sounds like the consensus is we would bring that up with him next week when he is making that update. Is that okay with everybody? All right, very good. Are there any other recommendations that we would like to pass on at this time? Understanding, as Commissioner Withington pointed out, that he will be here and speaking on this subject next week. Are there any other recommendations that we would like to forward to him? I really do like the idea of having them here because apart from the fact that we need to speak to him, my hope is that this strengthens the hand of staff as they are dealing with these vendors, because I think it's something I'm very adamant about, and that is staff works very much better when they have the commission behind them, when they have the elected officials behind them. And I think that we need to present that united front to make sure that we get this issue resolved at the earliest possible moment and start sending out tax bills that are in fact accurate. Commissioner Withington.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with Jay on that. I think that was a good idea, Jay, having them come here before us. Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. If there are no other, that seems to be the sole recommendation coming out of this discussion. Do you feel it is clear enough, Director, to communicate that to the administrator?
Yes, I do. I took notes during the discussion, so yes, I will hand that off to Damon when he returns from his conference.
Thank you very much. That will conclude this discussion item. I see no other commissioners seeking recognition. That brings us to County Administrator comments. Director, if you have anything you'd like to say, please proceed.
I just have two closing comments. Next Thursday, May the 7th at 4 p.m. in this room, it will be the Constitution Review Committee's next meeting. And then following that meeting at 6 p.m. on May the 7th will be our next commission meeting, again, in this room. That's all the comments I have.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner comments is next. Commissioner Carpenter. Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Lawson, really. Commissioner Withington, you are recognized.
So I pointed out last week, and I'm going to keep saying it until Jerry fixes the problem. It's been 1 month now since Jerry removed, well, it's been over a few months actually, since Jerry removed one candidate for the TIF Commission and replaced with another candidate for county commissioner on the TIF Commission. And I hope to God he actually reviews the documents that are before him. He's the executive director of the Economic Development Council. And this couple weeks ago, there was the State of the City address. And he spelled every city wrong on that list. He doesn't even know how to spell the names of the cities that he's representing as the EDC director. So I hope to God he's doing a better job on the TIF Commission. And again, I hope that Jerry fixes this mistake and quits being a hypocrite and removing one candidate and keeping another candidate on the TIF Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would point out that according to our rules, personal remarks about other commissioners is not allowed. With that, I have a comment, and that is this. We have with us our Director of Tourism, and I'm going to pass this around to the other commissioners, but there's a publication, the 2026 Kansas City Royals Yearbook, and we have an ad in there that is basically to do with the Go North. Thank you, Megan, for putting together such a great issue. I'm going to pass this around so all commissioners get a chance to see it, and I would recommend that there's a placeholder here, and I would recommend that we then put this in our waiting room so that with our marker, so that citizens can see what it is we are doing and the great job that's being done. Not only is this a great effort for our particular situation as far as FIFA goes, this is a very good effort that leads to a more unified Northland where we are working in active cooperation with our friends in Platte County. So as great as this is, I think it portends a much better cooperation between our counties, and that can do nothing but benefit the Northland. Commissioner, there you go. With that, we are adjourned.
I think everybody got one.
Oh, did you get one? Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, we're good.